So, welcome to 80 Level Roundtable, where we discuss the latest news and information about the game dev, tech, and art. And here today we have Spiridon with us, and we are going to discuss some very interesting topics connected with publishing and art books, our favorite. So, Spiridon, before we go into like our topic, could you give us a little introduction and tell us about yourself and where you come from, what do you do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this, and compliments to the platform. I love 80 Level. Yeah, so my name is Spiridon, or Spiridon. You can call me either way. I started my career as a graphic designer in print media in 2006. Worked mostly on publishing related to tourism, and I was in 2013 I became also like a freelance illustrator. I started out a little bit earlier, but 2013 I went freelance, and this was kind of the moment when I started merging my interest in art with my actual like with my skills, with my job that I was doing, combining passion with work. The first publication I worked on was Even Mehl Amundsen's Time series. Was kind of a kickstarting my own career with this thing, because it was already a project that was waited for by a lot of people, and the campaign that we did on Kickstarter was also very successful. And from there, I went on to work with other artists like Andrew Marr or James Martin. I worked with Edition Correct, the publisher of Kim Jong-gi and some Soberani volumes, on Jesper Ejsing's book, and they were also teaming up with us for other publication with the artist that I'm working with. In 2019, I made like an art collective book project, which is called Hardcover, which was publishing adult art by a lot of acclaimed artists. It was kind of a project that was about protesting the continuous let's say censorship, or people getting blocked for doing artistic nudes and all that, and people were very frustrated at the time. So this book project was kind of an event for them, and also very just exciting, and to do that was very successful. The second one we did was also very successful on Kickstarter. So for my previous publications, I realized that using crowdfunding as a platform to publish books in a more independent way, and not in the traditional publishing sense, which I knew from my job that I had before, that it would work pretty well, and it actually did, especially in the art world. I was also doing this magazine in 2017. I started it. In the meantime, since June of this year, it has been acquired by CGMA. It was the Firestarter community magazine. I was doing a lot of networking through that magazine. I was bringing free content to the art community, and it helped me also like build my network, and made the publishing site much easier, since traveling to all these events and meeting all these people was a very important part in meeting artists that actually want to publish with you, because doing something like a crowdfunding campaign with an artist that doesn't really know you, or maybe just heard about you, and meeting them in person is super important, because you can't just ignore the factor of trust when it comes to this. And so since then, this has been working out pretty well for me, and also for the artist working with me.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So my first question is basically connected with the art of art books, if I may say.
Yeah.
So here on 80 Level, we are huge fans of this format, and I guess I have like a bunch of them. Like all of my editors have them. Like my boss loves them very much, and we just love the format and kind of playing with it and having it on a coffee table and so on. But at the same time, when I had conversations with publishers, like like Dark Horse or, anyone basically in the industry, it
Yeah.
seems like still art books are treated more like a very risky business, that it's not
Hmm.
something that you would do, just for the sake of art, so to speak. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about like what lies behind the curtain? Like, what is the business model of this business? So how do are artists making money on these, or are these just printed out of, sheer passion? What is considered like a success in this industry? Like, how many copies maybe do you need to sell and print? And overall, like, if you could tell, like, what's the state of the market for art books? Because we have like a bunch of artists on the platform, and I'm sure everyone would love to do like their own little art book with their collection of their incredible art. So I'm just thinking if it's doable, or the market is not there yet.
So these were a couple of questions. I hope I don't miss out any of them. I
Yeah,
will.
don't worry
I will
about it.
just start. Yeah, I will just answer from the last one. So, um, art books in general. Or let me start differently. I would say if you decide to make an art book, you should be sure to make it for the love of it and not to make any money. Because as long as you're not Taschen or Dark Horse or any other big publishing company working with any studios, if you're trying to do this in an independent way, it's a combination of luck, networking, marketing, and the love for the art books. You will probably even hear this comment from people who are doing this much longer than I do. Don't really get rich from doing this. You don't really. I'm not sure if you could say something like you can live from this. Maybe you can. To be honest, I'm doing a lot of things at the side too, because to me this is mostly something about doing it for the love of it. Since I'm interested in art and since I'm very much a nerd when it comes to books, I always wanted to do something for the collectors with great material. And so, yeah, there's one aspect of art books that is quite different. Like the one that is that the most people know is the kind of art books of the traditional kind of gallery art. Um, so in this case, it usually works like a catalog, and these are printed to not really generate any income, but it's more about to show people what's out there and what they can probably get. It's about an overview. It's about showing which artist the gallery recently added. So what I am doing, and a lot of other people are also doing, is actually considered a kind of art book that is even a niche in a niche. So if you're talking about art books that include concept artists, 2D and 3D concept artists, I mean, or illustrators, or people who do book covers, mostly fantasy art or even sci-fi, this is something that's not even really considered part of this art book world. Yeah, so it's even something that is frowned upon by some people. And if I recall what my friend Eric told me, it's like if you think about Hans Rüdi Giger, the man, the genius that designed the Alien. He made most of his money, as far as I know, from the one book that was published by Taschen. And if you think about that, and if you think about the fact that he has never been really accepted in the art world as other artists were, because he was working on movies and all these pop culture things, some would say, then you would actually think that it should have been the exact opposite, because he's so well respected, right? Like, he's an important artist and he has done so many great things. But he's kind of an exception in that market, right? So you have someone who has done great artworks with airbrush, who is known for that medium specifically, and you would think that that guy has made a great impact in the art world, in the gallery world, but it's still something that is even considered as a niche. And so it's the same case with the art books that I and others are doing. And so there is a market, but it's just for people who are super nerding out about the topic, who are very interested in concept art, in art that is connected to games. But I would say there is hope because games have become something in the past years that has been more and more important. There are people who say that games at some point will be more important than movies, that they are the new medium to tell stories. And if you were looking at games like The Last of Us, this is something that we can totally believe. That is, it's absolutely acceptable to think that. So I'm thinking that art books in that sector will probably also be something that is becoming more important. If you're looking at artists that have been working on Magic the Gathering or in games, but also are producing their art in a traditional sense, in traditional mediums, and are selling them in galleries now, and more places open up that consider these as valuable artworks that are going over the table for many thousands of dollars, then there is hope. There is more happening. Which question did I forget other than that?
No, I think you gave a very nice intro into this, because I kind of have the same opinion towards it. So I'm not sure if this is something that you would do. And I think it actually applies to anything that you're doing in games or movies and so on. Because if you think about it, nobody actually goes there to make $1 million, right? So they're just going there just to do a movie or to do some art or to make a game. The success sort of like comes as a nice complement to that all, but I don't think it's ever in the like priority for the most of people. And when it is, it kind of becomes like not very successful, or maybe not successful, but just boring in a way. Like when corporations are making games, it's different.
I'm thinking about these cases where you have. Oh, I mean, I can just tell from my perspective. I work with a publishing company for games, which is called We Are Fuzzy. The guys behind it are the same that founded Kit Bash 3D, Max Berman and Banks Boutte and his friends, their friends, and they started. They created this game which is called Sleep Tight. And it's a Nintendo game for the Switch. And they approached me to create an art book with all the process for their creatures and their like the monsters that were made and the characters you can play. So if you are creating a game as an indie company and you have like this giant stack of artwork, it would just be, in my opinion, a total waste to not pack this in a book. And I'm not saying go to a publisher or come to me or come to anyone else. Just sit down. Even if you work with Photoshop, and I know some people will kill me over this, I would say actually use InDesign. But even if you just pack everything together in Photoshop, send it to something like a photo book printer, and then just create a stack of books and give them away to people who appreciate it or sell them or make them part of a Kickstarter campaign to even fund the game. Then you've done the right thing. Then you don't do something that a lot of bigger game publishers do, have art created that just goes straight to the bin because it cannot be published for whatever commercial or lawyer reason, I will say, for any legal reasons. There are people who are sitting there and creating artwork for hours and hours and hours, and they don't ever see the light of the day. If you're an independent publisher for games and you get the chance to actually make this visible to other people, please make an art book. They are just in such a demand, and they will also create more value for your product in the end, for the game itself.
Yeah, totally. I think that having something physical that is connected with your game, be that like an art book or even a t-shirt, it's always such a great advantage. And I guess, Mike, you touched a little bit on that, saying that, just to get your Photoshop, project ready and do some printing in your office. But if we're like being super serious, right? So printing a project of that kind is kind of super complex because there's a number of issues that arise, like the accuracy of colors, like, so you need to be very careful about choosing your partner and so on. So I
Yeah,
guess
of course.
my question is, like, if you were like super serious about it and if you wanted to monetize it and go like on Kickstarter or work with a publisher, um, where would you go to do the actual printing and publishing of the physical art book? Like, what's your take on it? Because I know there are partners in China, there are companies like there are like all over the world, and there is so many different things. There's like the paper, there's like the hardcover, soft cover. There's a bunch of other things that I think artists in games traditionally don't think that much about. I would love to
Yeah.
hear your perspective on it because you've been in this business like for a while.
So the moment where I'm nerding out the most is when it comes to the material. When you have a really good book in terms of content and you just print it on really bad material, that hurts. Still, it's better than not doing it at all. Obviously, when it comes to production in countries that are farther away and are cheaper in production. It's always to also think about the factors that probably will play into not doing it, which are outside of the cost. So what some of my partners have told me in the past, and which is the reason why I've never produced anything in China so far, except for the Sleep Tight book, which I made with a friend of mine who's called Mark Vieira. And Mark, for example, is someone who's doing offshore printing. So he's taking care of everything. He's contacting the companies in China, and he's traveling over there. I think even in Hong Kong, and I think it was Hong Kong. And he's traveling there and checking everything out and making sure the quality is great. And in the end, you get a product that you're happy about. So that might make sense if you're in the United States, where in my experience, printing is even more expensive. And I'm saying even because I'm used to things being more expensive in Germany in most cases. So printing in the United States is much more expensive than in most other European countries that I've worked with printers. And so it makes sense to say something like, okay, I'm sending it over to China. But the legal affairs are different. So the sentence that I heard most so far from other colleagues is, if you send something over, then you can be sure that you just forfeit your rights. Be sure that there will be plagiarism. Be sure that there will be ripoffs. Were cases where something in the book that has been printed offended the government, and all books were burned. There are so many horror stories. I don't know how many of them I can confirm, but even if half of them are true, it's a good enough reason to not print in China. Except for the case maybe that you have maybe family there, or if you know people there who have a printer. Like, I cannot generalize this. It's just a reason where I'm not feeling safe enough to do this. And also, especially since I'm handling this for artists that are trusting me with a product. So what I'm doing is that I work with a co-publisher, my business partner Jean-Christophe Corrette of Edition Corrette. As I mentioned before, he's publishing books of Super Ani, of Karl Kopinski, Jesper Ejsing, and many other artists. We're working together. So basically, when I have an artist and I approach him about this, then he helps me fulfill the book. So I don't really have to take care of the aspect of shipping everything. And at the same time, when he has a book project, then he hires me to help him with the crowdfunding, but at the same time also with the design of the book. So it's like a mutual thing. And the places, the countries we print with that we go with our books are usually in Eastern Europe. where the cost is because of labor is much lower. The quality is varying. The ones that we have experience with, and this is just something that you can really just learn by making books, is to have partners that you can trust with, that have worked with other projects that have made great that did just great products, and you just go back to them and just stick with them. In case you don't have these places, there's always on-demand printers online where you just have to send samples, print them, check if the color matches, and just go on with your life, basically. You just have to do the whole trial and error thing, or you just know a printer, like my friend Iris Compete, for example. She was close to a printer in the Netherlands. She's from the Netherlands herself, and she really connected with that person, and they created this great book with the quality that she wanted. And to the day, it's one of my favorite books because the quality is just top notch, and it's just lovely to see when people care about creating a product for collectors. So there's not a simple answer to this, as I just figured out. But in the end, I think if I would have to summarize this, I would say maybe ask someone who knows. Even just, I don't know, come to me or come to any other publisher that you know, or someone who has made a book before, and ask them. There is not an easy answer. Or if you want to do it the hard way, do the trial and error, or find a printing company in your country and go there and just control everything. Because if you want to create a game and want to make a book to add more value, then the least thing you probably can do is also just go to a printer and get informed on what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I did ask these questions because I actually had conversations with people who were doing just various physical goods, including our books, and they were doing physical merch and stuff like that. And I was amazed at the amount of work and like additional headache that you need to have in order to produce something like that, because the horror stories that you kind of that you just enumerated, like saying like that they can steal something, or the you know, just the overall print quality might not be as good. I heard all of them, and it is kind of surprising that a lot of people are not aware of that, and they think that building like your own merch or creating some kind of such a complicated product as an art book will be easy. It's not going to be easy. That's why I think that's why having such a partner or an expert on your side is always beneficial. So, and I guess Spiridon, here comes my next question. So if you don't have the partner on your side, so what do you do? So do you partner with a publisher, like maybe some big name, or you go like indie and find someone like in the community? How do you get the funding as well? I think it's a viable question, because nobody really knows how expensive it is and how much money you need to put down. So it would be nice if you could kind of give some guidance as just go into like a big publisher and a small publisher, and what are the advantages of both approaches? Because I can think of some, and I would love to kind of like comment once you give the answer.
That's this important question. I've heard it quite a few times. So the first thing that you have to think about is, if you have a product, it doesn't mean that a big publisher wants it. A publisher that employs people needs to be aware of the fact that he has to pay these people that work for creating this book, market it, fulfill it, ship it out, and all these things, they have to be considered. So that means that you really have to be aware that you have a top-notch product, that the publisher wants it. But I mean, the experience that I had with artists is that they usually think they are not good enough or don't have good enough material. And in most cases that I encountered, that was complete bullshit. that was just either the imposter syndrome, the dreaded one, or just having that they had bad feedback in the past. There are multiple reasons. There are a lot of reasons that are funny. There are reasons that are absolutely not funny. There are reasons that are connected to mental health and to self-worth. And so maybe approaching a publisher and getting rejected will be something that will make these specific people not ever try this again because they can't deal with rejection. In case that I'm talking, that someone like this is listening to that, don't be afraid. Even if you get just a letter of rejection, if someone just tells you no, it doesn't mean that this will count for everybody. And this still doesn't mean that you cannot just do your own approach, the thing that I was just being asked about. The own approach would be, there are multiple ways. You can just create a book. Like, let's just think that you have the book, right? Like, or you, that you want to create the book and have the content, and you maybe even have the PDF ready. So something you can do is print it somewhere and have it at home and sell it through a store, your own, or Etsy, or find an independent publisher. In my case, I am trying to help artists self-publish. So when you're publishing with me, usually I just put my name on this, but not as a publisher, sometimes as a co-publisher, but I never really publish any books. I don't really consider myself a publisher when I'm working with artists. The way that I'm doing it is I'm enabling them to publish it themselves. So their name is on this, and I'm not adding any logos on the front or whatever, because it's not about me. The other thing is I'm very aware that I'm doing this because I want to lay out books. I want to make beautiful books. I want to make stuff that people put in their shelves and that they collect. If you find someone who is doing what I'm doing, you're maybe on the good side. There are always different models when it comes to costs. But so I have, for example, have my connections about fulfilling, I have my connections about printing, and everything is sorted out. If you don't have that, and if you don't find an indie publisher or anyone like that, the logical solution would be to do crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is very easy. Crowdfunding is very complex. Crowdfunding is very hard. It's all of that, depending on what you do. If you decide to do something like one of the Make 100 projects, this is something that I would tell everybody to try out first if you are new to this. So the way that you do it is you don't overload yourself with a specific risk that that would be creating a book and suddenly it becomes a bigger success than you expected. So you limit it to 100 products. If you have this, then you can make clear calculations. And it doesn't go without calculations. I'm sorry, but if you're not, if you can't do that, then probably you should just not do it at all. The calculations will be considered tax, fulfillment, includes shipping costs, which on Kickstarter, for example, is part of the cost that is shown. They integrated a new tool that shows you how many products you have to create and how much of the money is shipping. The number that the public sees is the number that includes shipping, so usually it looks bigger than it actually is. So if you do this Make 100 version, then you can get a feeling on how to approach this. If it was a success, and if you say, well, this has been good, then you can still consider to make another campaign. And it also means that you already have a bunch of people that are following you on Kickstarter, because Kickstarter, most of all, is a network. Of course, they want their money, but they're also bringing customers to you if the product is good. So if you think about it, even if you create a Kickstarter campaign and it's not a success, at least you build new followers on a network. So if you launch it again, they will get notified about your next product, no matter if it was a success or not. So yeah, try either Indiegogo or any other. I mean, there are so many crowdfunding platforms so far. There are some that are just limited to countries. France has its own very big comic culture with 5,000 new comics every year, which is absolutely insane, bigger than the US. and they have their own crowdfunding platforms. I remember there was one is called Ulele, I think, and the other was Kiss Kiss Bank Bank or something. I can't just keep up with the names. But there's the traditional ones would be Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Indiegogo used to be one that was included with PayPal. By now, it's not anymore, as far as I know. So it's something that is limited to credit cards, something that is not used as much in Europe. So if you're a European creator, if you look at your Instagram account and you see that most of your clients come from Europe, then maybe you should think about doing it on Kickstarter. Maybe you should just think about making a shop on PayPal or any other payment option, and just collect the money and do it as a pre-order. Because if you think about it, Kickstarter is nothing else than a pre-order platform, and you can handle this yourself. I mean, people have done this before Kickstarter too, and just try to get the funds together. And if you have that, make a print run and hope for the best, that it's not an absolute nightmare, because like you just mentioned before, it can be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, Spiridon, I actually completely agree with you, and you kind of preceded my next question about the pre-orders, because that's what I wanted to kind of touch a little bit on. But my initial idea, so I went ahead and I had conversation with Dark Horse Publishing. So basically, I had conversation with them, talked about basically wanted to learn more about their business model. So I just went ahead and kind of like did like a guerrilla test. I don't know how to call it. And they were very straightforward. They said that in order for us to publish you, whatever you want, right? So you need to have some kind of like a great property to back up your art or whatever, right? Because when they want to publish a product, they want to make sure, I mean, it's like in any media business, right? So they want to mitigate their risks, and they need to understand that if you're coming to them, that the product that you're providing will sell in at least some kind of like some numbers, right? So if Bethesda comes to them and says like, hey, I want to make a Fallout art book, they will be happy to help, right? But if just some random guy from the street comes up and says that I got this amazing comic and we have like a bunch of followers on Instagram, they would be like, yeah, maybe not. Like maybe we're not gonna do that. Yeah, and I completely kind of understand their their train of thought, because after all, it's business for them. And as you said, they have salaries to pay and there's a lease and all that stuff. And not to mention the facilities and the printings and all that stuff. So that's definitely complicated. But what is a great advantage that this kind of a partnership can give to an artist is that they can provide a very wide distribution network, right? So if you go with them and they, for some miracle, you end up and they want to publish your stuff, your stuff will be everywhere, because they can push it in like Barnes and Noble, they can push it on like Amazon, they can do it everywhere, right? So that's definitely an advantage. But it, as with Kickstarter, it kind of all comes with a cost, right? So, and Kickstarter takes a certain percentage of your whatever you gather there, right? And so does the publisher, right? Because the publisher usually works in a way where they just pay for the license or whatever, and then they handle the profit is basically theirs. You're just getting some kind of a fee for them using your intellectual property. So it's like a very, very complicated topic, and I know it's it's not an easy answer. So I'm sure you have those conversations a lot, like in your line of work. And you mentioned like one thing that I really liked is going with the pre-orders, and essentially it is something that Kickstarter does and so on. It's just like, thanks to like the networking effect like the Kickstarter creates and the buzz and the press, it maybe can get you better results in terms of like promotion and marketing. But is there an opportunity to do this kind of like on your own without any platform in mind, not to kind of give away the percentages, right? So not to give away like 30% of your income. I don't know like how much Kickstarter takes, but I think for a newcomer who doesn't really understand like all those, also things connected with using the different platforms and services and taxes and all that stuff, it might be like a nasty surprise in the end, where you think you got like $1 million and you think that you're like super successful, but at the end you come up with a much smaller amount of money, which might not be enough to cover all your costs, and at the end you end up even owning more to like your partners and so on. So does pre-order do pre-orders help you kind of like mitigate that risk in a way? Can they sort of like soothe your risks and give you more opportunity to kind of be more flexible?
The hidden cost, of Kickstarter and the stuff that where people were like, in the first years when it came up was like the comments you usually were reading were like, shit, I messed up because I didn't expect all the extra cost with shipping, etc., etc., etc. Like all these things were like the absolute neck breaker. There was a case of there were enough cases of artists that created the book and just couldn't deal with the pressure. And there was like this one guy I remember who actually burned the entire stack of books just because he couldn't deal with it anymore. Yeah, he did that. And that was like, I think like 3 years ago, if I remember right. So he basically was just fed up with the entire fulfillment aspect, and said like people are messaging him and asking him all the time where the books are. And he made a video of himself in a kind of a very, like, if I may say so, petty manner. It was just like filming himself. It was like, yeah, here you got your shit and stuff like that. It was filming him, and you could see them like throw a match on the books, and they were just like blazing. And so you have this case, right? And where I would say something like, well, you also could have just created a website and created a payment button and say like, you're gonna get the book in 3 or 4 months, and people just send you the money, and you have something like regular updates through email where you say, I have so much money, now I have so much money, now I have so much money, and then you say, all right, now I reached the goal. And then you have the money that you have asked the printer for before, like you obviously would have to get a quote on that, and then you just deal with it stuff. So people, actually, you just need a shop, and you just have to tell people, I will send this later, but you can buy this now. And the option to just reimburse people, like this is all that you need. Kickstarter is taking 10%, just like me, there's like 8%, but then you can have the transaction fees and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, but overall you can say if Kickstarter takes 10%, but overall brought you 50 to 25% more money than if you would have done it differently, then you can do the math. You can say like, all right, this was still good. If you're like, I don't want to deal with any of this and I just want to do pre-orders, then just do it. It's super simple. All you need is a crowd. You just need followers. You just need a fan base. There are still people who do it like that. As I think I recall, Ashley Wood is actually doing it like this. James Jean, I think, is also doing it through his own website. And they regularly have something like a limited print coming up, or just an art book every year. There are plenty of people who do it like that, and they don't need any other thing. But because what they did in the right moment was not just build their entire hopes on social media, and as toxic and as disgusting it has become over time. It's connecting people, and that's always great. But I mean, if we recall, Facebook at some point said, well, come join Facebook, and you just need a Facebook page and more people will see it. And at some point they were like, all right, so now that people are here, maybe you just pay some money for ads to make people actually see your work. Yeah, which is, if you think about it, like a classic scam. Then you realize, well, I maybe should have put more effort into a good newsletter. If you ask me, a newsletter, emails is the best thing that you can do. because it doesn't really cost anything. I mean, it costs depending on your provider or how you do it, but it doesn't really cost anything. And you reach everybody who actually wants to get updates from you, and they all can just check their inbox. And if they missed something, the next update might help them. They can still check your social media, but if you depend on social media to do your business, you might find yourself at some point banned, or for some reason, like this, what is it called? Shadow ban? Yeah, so shadow ban for not being active enough or something like that. All these algorithms, they will probably just not be a favor to your business. So if you ask me, yeah, do pre-orders, do a good newsletter, and you're safe.
Spiridon, I can't thank you enough for kind of like highlighting all these issues, because I think it's super important. Like if you're going into the business side of things, you kind of need to understand that there is like that your sleep is gonna be very troubled at night if you have any right?
Yes,
Yeah, because there's like so many things going on, and there's like, and we haven't touched like on legal, we haven't touched like on so many questions that might arise when you're doing this. But you did talk a bit about like the use of social media as one of your kind of like a marketing channels, right? And you said that it's kind of risky, and I agree. As a person who was accidentally banned on Facebook just at the beginning of the year, I was like, I kind of felt all bad. Yeah. So, and I have friends who are like in the industry. They are fighting with the same problems, and it just shows you that you can't actually depend on one channel in general. It's just not productive. But my question is, so how do you market it then? So what is the way that you promote it and sell it, and kind of let the audience know that you have this product and so on? Because I think in the majority of cases where you see someone using a platform, they are relying a lot on that platform to kind of give them a little bit of a push, a bit of a networking effect or so on in their marketing. And kind of to connect with that, like how do you market, is the next question is, whom do you market it to, right? Because I had a conversation like a couple of years with Leo, like the ArtStation founder, and he said, man, that artists don't want to buy stuff from other artists. And Leo should know, right? So my question is, who's your customer? Like, whom are you selling these products that you've created? That's very interesting, like, to me. And what is the channel to kind of reach them?
So this question taps into a very to a topic that can get very uncomfortable, because it has a couple of truths that are tough to swallow. If you want to market your product, be it a print or whatever, if you have platforms like ArtStation and several marketplaces, even if it's just a tutorial, if you have a print shop, if you have the traditional means that we just mentioned, I mean, traditional by now is also social media. It has become traditional. Then the main thing that you have to do to make sure is that you, like you mentioned before, don't rely on one of them. Because yes, I had friends who were sharing, what was it, like a YouTube video of I think it was a hip hop video, and obviously there were a couple of dancers, and yeah, so that was for them was kind of close to like pornographic content or some content and something, and they were banned. It means that and you can't do anything. Like, you can't just contact a help desk. You can't do anything at all. Some people say there are measures that you can take and just kind of like fight it, but usually if you don't just get banned for a while, and then at some point you can send an inquiry and say, why can you please look over this, because this was done by a bot and this is just an elbow and not a boob. Then in the end, you'll probably just be gone if this wasn't the case like that. If you are banned for good and you're deleted, then you're gone. This meant for those friends that I was talking about, this meant a significant break in their income, because they were building they put so much effort in building their audience on this one platform. And since Instagram is also part of Facebook now, it has happened before that you were blocked on one platform and on the other one too. So what's left? There's Twitter. Twitter doesn't have any not really a lot of regulations. It's been criticized a lot for just like Facebook for the political content that they allow and pushing the misinformation. But at the same time, Twitter doesn't really have any issues with pornographic content, which is the reason why you find so much uncensored content there. Anyway, it's free for you to put on there whatever you want without a risk, and not even being confused with something. Even if you don't put pornographic content on there or adult material, it still means that at least it won't be confused, which is a good thing. Where was I? So if you're thinking about pushing out your content on through social media, make sure that you don't have just one platform. I kind of got carried away. Help me with the question again.
No, I think you kind of touched on that, right? So
yeah, but you were more specific. You were about
the channel, right? The channels is that you can mix with Twitter, you can mix with Facebook,
Yeah.
but the important thing is just not to rely on one channel that you have. Like, don't invest on your money and just put it.
Oh no, yeah, and you said artists buying from artists and all that. Yeah, right. So
yeah, but like, whom are you selling this to?
Exactly,
like, that's a big question.
So if you are an artist that is, let's just call it famous, and if you have your fan base, then these obviously will be some of your buyers. If you happen to create art that is something that people outside of the art circle are watching, then you probably are even better off, because there's a bigger audience than artists themselves. There are geeks. And if you're creating content that goes into the comic direction, for example, then you also tap into the target group of geeks. And this is where it gets interesting. Like, this is what you want to do. I can only say, confirm what Leo said, because my my experience with, I'm sorry, I gotta drink some water. My experience with creating products for artists has also been made through the Firestarter magazine that I made. It was a magazine that was available for free for a couple of years. Since 2017, I was publishing it.
I just want to say that it's a great magazine. If you don't have it, just you won't be able to buy it. Like, right? So because I went, I think, on Gamescom or somewhere, and I had an opportunity to kind of look through the magazine. It was amazing. Just saying.
I think probably you probably went to Nordic Game in Malmö, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had it there. So this magazine doesn't exist anymore, not in that form. So it was acquired by CGMA, and it's a new magazine now called Nexus, and it's not centered on events, but on education. But other than that, what I was going to say was the magazine was for free, and I left it open to people to just donate, and there were thousands of downloads, and the donations made up, like, I don't know, $100 or $200 in the end. If it would have been in a way that every single one of them would have just paid, like, let's say 50 cents or something, then the entire thing would have looked different, obviously, and the magazine would have grown into something else. And this is also the experience that has been told me from other artists, which is basically exactly what Leo said. Artists don't really support other artists. There is the issue of content being torrented. There's the issue of stuff being ripped not only from T-shirt companies or something that are just spamming everything on Facebook. There are also other artists who are just printing everything out themselves or creating their own T-shirts with that. I mean, the classic bootleg stuff is never going away. But at the same time, you have a very big conversation about not being supported enough. So, and let me just say it frankly as it is, there were plenty of people who have been complaining a lot about not getting any support online or through the products, and at the same time haven't supported anyone else. And this is just not an artist problem, this is a human problem. There was a little story that I experienced at an event called THU. Trojan Horse was a unicorn, and there was this guy that approached me and was talking to me, was getting me a drink, and and we were kind of having this conversation, and I was finishing the cola, and he was telling me at the same time that he found this tutorial that increased his workflow so immensely he only needed like a third of the time, and it was something he found on Gumroad. And I was asking the guy basically like how how much it costed, and he was like, oh, it was just like $5, but it was still too expensive for him. He just torrented it, and then he lit a cigarette and asked me if I want another drink. So that was basically something that made me think like, so okay, so you can get cigarettes, you can get a drink, and even offer me one, but that guy that increased your workflow and made your work faster, and in the end made you ask for like you write invoices and don't work as long anymore for the amount that is on these invoices, and you couldn't even give the guy like $5 or something. So that was kind of a reality that hit me and has influenced my decisions ever since, because it was like a pattern that I encountered more often. There is this weird notion in the public, not only from obviously from the art community, because people in the industry are complaining themselves. But there are often these screenshots going around about people like, you should do this for free because art should be there for everybody, and it should be an honor for you to do this stuff. And as much as people are laughing about these things going around, as often I have seen artists not supporting other artists. So if you create a product, make sure that you have the support from the right people, that you target it to the right people, and this will always be the fans that have always supported you. And if you have a good product, if you build it, they will come. And it again is a case of trial and error. You can do a lot of targeting through Facebook ads. If you want to tap into that direction, you can just launch a couple of ads and see which country is reacting best to this, where the most response is coming from, age group, even gender. All these things you can find out, but that's compared to what I was proposing with doing this over like just pre-orders. This is basically rocket science. So if you don't know what you're doing, probably don't put your money into Facebook.
Yeah, Spiridon, I think it's a great answer, and it's kind of a nice way to go into like the end of our conversation. So, because we're almost running out of time, unfortunately, I would love to spend like another couple of hours discussing all these topics. That's super interesting. But yeah, I guess you kind of laid it out that the audience is dynamic, right? So it's not something that if you were that is set in stone and you can't do anything about it. You can't, right? So if you have certain images or you have certain kind of like design concept that appeal to a wider audience, like as you mentioned, like if you go to the geeks kind of like level, then where you kind of start seeing more sales and more traction kind of going with a wider audience. It's just like
but if I may add something, like you don't have to do this too. Like I get why people cannot put support in some places, because first of all, we are recording this during a pandemic, and before that, most artists that are really excited and watching you and our fans are either students or just trying to get by. So this is not a critique that goes in the direction of, "Ugh, why don't you do this?" But it's more like, if you're complaining about the same issue, maybe you could be the change. Like you can make a difference and just smoke one cigarette less and just give a couple of cents to the one that you really want to support and get a print.
Yeah. And I'm a big supporter of the idea of like this concept of like extreme ownership. If and it basically means that if something's happening with you that you don't want to happen, then you need to change it, right? So
Right.
that's basically your problem. Like, and it's not this that the world is unfair and so on and so forth, because yeah, duh, of course it's unfair. What are you gonna do about it? Like, people are going to steal stuff, right? But if you
Yeah.
have like the right attitude, if you package it in like a good way, that you find the right audience, the right channel, you will be successful. I mean, I know there's a lot of ifs, like there's it's a lot of like things that have to come into place, but it's still doable. You just need to, invest some time and so on.
There's not a general answer to this issue. I agree with this. So you can't just really say in general like why is this happening to me, and what and I can't do anything about it. Sometimes there are just solutions that you don't come up with, and in some cases it's just like Jean-Luc Picard said, yeah, you can do everything right and then still something goes wrong, and that's not failure, that's life. It's life, man.
That's true. That's true. I mean, and on that optimistic note, we would like to end the podcast. Spirit, and it was incredible fun having you with us. I hope that someday we'll do another conversation. And just for the audience, I'm just gonna leave all the links to like Spiridon stuff and the description section, so you can go ahead and click it. Plus, we're going to do a separate like written interview with Spiridon, and we're going to publish it like maybe in a couple of weeks after this gets published. So check out that as well. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me. Take care.